See here. Hello, everybody. And chat. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Man, I got a lot to talk about today. Sorry for being late, guys. I was messing with the, I had to go get a package, which I was hoping was my microphone for the show, and it wasn't. That still was coming, but I did get the arm and the bone. So, oh well. Next week.
I'm not sure if I got to invite my peeps.
They can use the same link.
All right. And who else here? Type things. How many people do you see?
I see there's 11 people.
Things.
Hey, Amy, Eric, Brian. Hey, Brian, I got your questions. I will get to them for sure. Billy, also things. Awesome. So, where should we start, Paul? First of all, how was your week?
It was action-packed. I got shelves in my office now. See them? See them? Praise the shelves. Praise them.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's what you did. All right.
Good shelves. We've been working on the PDC, getting the word out about the permaculture design course.
Yes, we're going to talk about this. And
the appropriate technology course. And I have a new assistant, Tracy. And we've got a new boot here at Wheaton Labs. So we've got I don't know if I mentioned the boot camp program, Permaculture Boot Camp. And so basically a person can come here and work for 21 months, which will include a lot of natural building and gardening and things of that nature. And then after 21 months, they have an acre, deep roots. So it's kind of like, it's as if, it's an alternative to land ownership, but it's kind of like rent for life.
Cool.
So I think it's like, basically if you go and be a woofer, but here for 21 months, you get an acre, whereas you go be a woofer someplace else for 21 months, then you get kicked off the land. Get the fuck out of here.
Wow, so is that boot camp thing still going on? Could you still...
Yep, we still have openings, and we have 2 spots left where people can do a trade, where they can come here and be in the boot camp for a certain amount of time, and then they can take the 2-week permaculture design course and the 2-week appropriate technology course.
Come on, guys. That's an awesome deal. That's really cool.
I think it's pretty good. And I mean, I think the thing with woofer programs is a lot of time you get there and the farmer is kind of pissed off that the woofers that show up don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, the woofer wants to experience stuff. The woofer's like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is kind of new to me. And so I think a lot of times it doesn't work out. In fact, 90% of the farmers I've talked to would never do it again. And there's a lot of really awesome farms I've been to where it's like, yeah, we just don't do the woof thing. It's too frustrating, too much drama. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a system that will work really well for everybody. And because I think, when the farmer feels like the woofer sucks, the farmer tends to say it out loud. You suck. You're worthless. I can do what you... It takes me less time to do it than it takes me to tell you what to do. So,
well, at least they're honest.
Yeah, and then of course they send you down the road, and you're kind of like, I think what a woofer would like to have is to feel appreciated, and the woofer is willing to work, but it's like, you know, we've had, I'd say half the people that come here have never held a drill, have never held a hammer,
Yeah.
have never held a hatchet or a maul, and they just want to, they'd like to pick up the basics, and then they'd like to get to the point that they could do something. Yeah. And I kind of feel like at the end of the program, at the end of 21 months, that when they get their acre, that they will be able to build their own natural building on that acre, and they'd be able to do all the gardening and build their fence and do all the things.
Do you think most farmers are only taking in one woofer?
That won't work, because when you go and you sign up for woof, what happens is that the people that are the woofers will tell like 40 different places, like, I'm coming to see you, I'm going to be at your farm, and they kind of, you know, work out all the options, and then it turns out that there's going to be 23 farms that they've said that they're coming to, and then when it comes right down to the last minute, they pick one and they just ignore the rest. And so then a farmer on the flip side is like, wow, I've got 12 people coming. Man, I better buy a lot of food, and I need to get more tools. And there I stocked up, I have all this stuff. And then one person shows up. Happens in there that kind of gets the farmers pissed. It's, you want it to work out good for the farmer, and you want it to work out good for the woofer. And so here we don't call them woofers, we call them gappers, because they're goofy about permaculture. And it's a different program. It's you know, long days. And originally when we did something a few years ago, then I hired a cook to cook for him. And then it's kind of like, well, when it's outside woofer hours, then a lot of them would just kind of sit around on my couch and wait to be waited on like they're at a resort, you know? And it's, and it was kind of weird. Anyway, we've got good structure now. The guy that's leading it, Fred Tyler, he's really, really nice guy, you know, which is better than if I was out there, like, you know, cause
get the fuck out of here.
And Fred's very soft spoken and quiet, so
okay,
much sweeter on folk.
Now we had we did the woofer program. Now we went through the woofer site, the real woofer site.
Yeah.
You guys started that way too, or did you not do that?
You know, I did it like 12 years ago when I was out on Mount Spokane.
Yeah. And
I was signed up for a couple of different things, and I experienced all that stuff where people were like, can you go into town and pick me up? I'm going to be at the airport or the bus station or something like that. And I'd get there and they're not there. And it's not like, ha ha, you so stupid, what a sucker. No, it's that they, when I got their email, they actually had like multiple farms on the line and they hadn't decided which one to go with yet.
So whoever picks me up wins?
No. I think they hadn't even bought their plane ticket yet. You know, they were still thinking about which place that they wanted to go to.
Oh.
All right, so here's a bunch of comments. I haven't been reading them. Have you been reading them?
Yeah. There was a question for you, which is if Jocelyn's still at the farm. That's from Brian.
Is anyone running a woofer training program to standardize a minimum knowledge set? Not that I know of, but I kind of feel like, you know, we're going to kind of do that, but for our own selfish gains. I mean, I think that if a gapper comes here and is here for like 2 months, then, you know, now there's only 19 months left to get your acre. I would think that they're not going to leave.
Now, you had a different experience with the woofers because, or you explain it differently than we did. We got people that didn't know what they were doing, but we didn't expect them to know it. But they didn't like cry about it. If we needed to drill something, I don't know. They just we had them with someone, and they would just start doing the work and ask them to do it with them, and they just learned. I don't know. It wasn't like I don't know how to do that, so I can't, or something like that. You know, they actually were like motivated and were like, fuck it, I'll try it, and went for it. Now, unless it was like running some kind of complicated equipment, which then is just obviously understandable. But we didn't have that problem. We had the drama.
I grew up. I spent some of my time growing up on a ranch and some of my time working the pea and wheat harvest in northeastern Oregon. And I worked at a lot of different farms when I was. Thing is, haha, I know more than you know. And that was kind of, I mean, they were really mean about it. And I've met some farmers, and it's kind of like, part of it is like there can only be one person on the tractor at a time. And so what you try to do is try to say, okay, I'm going to set you up with chopping some wood. And then I got to go get on the tractor and do a thing over there. And then, you know, you come back and it's like, all right, I've been driving the tractor for 2 hours, and what have you got? And it's kind of like, that's it. For 2 hours you've been chopping wood, and that's all there is. And so I think, and I'm gonna feed you. It's like you haven't even you know, chopped up enough wood here for calories that you're going to be consuming. It's like
we got to the point where they would burn themselves out, the guys at our farm. They would work so hard and so long and not say, I need a break. And because our tenant, we are 16 hours a day at least, you know, we're working our asses off. And and they would go right along with us and not like take a break until,
and get tired.
Oh yeah, and they get burnt the fuck out.
They're super fit, and they kind of look at what they're going to be doing here as the alternative to paying a gym, you know. And they want lots and lots of physical, and it's like, no problem. So we've had some people in that space. We've had some people that were sharp that arrived with skills. We've had a lot of different kinds of people, and I'm trying to think of like, you know, and then at the time I was trying to, like, you know, crank out DVDs and things like that and play that game, and as long as I kept bringing in money, I could pay for materials. And then I had my brother here who was, you know, running point on this, but he was kind of he was an old construction foreman, and the way that you improve people is that you fire them. And it's like, I had to explain to him, you can't fire these guys, they're volunteers. And he says, well, they're eating, ain't they? Well, yeah. Well, then you're paying them in food. And he just kind of wanted to fire all of them. And it's like, well, they're not experienced construction workers. So we did, you know, the thing is I kind of feel like, rather than my brother, who would like take him out somewhere tell him what to do, and then and he'd say, "Do you understand?" Usually the person was kind of like, "I just want this guy to stop yelling at me," and so I'll just tell him like, yeah, and then my brother would come back in 2 hours and yell at them on why haven't you gotten it done and why didn't you do the thing I told you to do. And I kept explaining to my brother it needed to be elbow to elbow, and I don't know, it was miscommunication. So now we've got Fred, and Fred's very elbow to elbow, and I'm so far it's been going quite well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really enjoyed the people. And all right, so when the farm is just going and you're not producing anything, you're buying all that food. And these people, most of them want really good food. So it's expensive to feed them. So he's not totally wrong, but it is. I mean, it's not like it's free labor. It costs a lot to get a woofer, especially if your farm is just starting or you haven't got the crops in yet, stuff like that. I mean, you got to pay to feed them. And Brian asked what generation they're from. Usually they're younger. For me, they were all younger.
Right. We've had a lot that were younger. We've had some that were middle-aged. I mean, how things would not work, it's like there's a different story for every person. But when we were doing this a few years ago, we figured out that it was costing us about $1,000 a month. And it was like most of that was going to food, and the next biggest one was to clean up after them. Mm. It's like they would be like, well, I'm out of here, and then you go to where their bunk is, and it's like, oh, wow. It's like something from Hoarders or something.
Yeah, that's it. How did you deal with that? Because we didn't want to go into the personal space. We don't want to invade someone's personal space, but they're fucking trashing it.
Right. I mean, if they're staying in a tent, then, no problem.
Yeah, trash away.
Although we do find that we're taking a lot of their stuff to the dump because, they fill up all of our garbage. Suddenly all of our garbage cans are full of crap. We do have a pretty cool system that we call the free shelf, where more stuff here, and then the second free shelf is like, here's where you add your stuff. So then, eventually we'll get to the point where it's so old that we're going to take all the stuff that's on the first shelf and start over.
That's cool. Brian wants to know if you use compost toilets for the woofers or if I did. Hell no, I didn't. But
we use what we call a willow feeder. Originally I called them a wheelie bin pooper, but we're now calling these willow feeders. And so then it's a sawdust system with a urine diverter. It's a little different.
Oh, it's like there's a tree over there, dig a hole and get this shit done.
Oh no, I don't want that, because then you start doing some of that, and now when you go to drink water, it's like, it tastes like poop Kool-Aid.
Oh my god.
Not my style.
Eric says Paul does IIRC. What the fuck is that? I know what IRC is.
What is IIRC, Eric? If that's your real name. Let's see. If I recall, Paul does, if I recall correctly, if I remember correctly. Oh, okay. All right. So, all right. But we also, like, right now it's wintertime. We're letting them in the house because,
you're nice.
Willow feeders, they got some pretty cold toilet seats, and if you're fresh out of the city, it's like you probably aren't steeled up for that yet.
Yeah. And there's probably other people that are living there. Are they allowing people to come in with them? Come bunk with me. It's cool.
I don't know if anything like that has happened. We had a gal come last March for one of our peasant workshops. So we've got a series we call the Peasant Workshop, where it's like really cheap, and it's like whoever's leading the workshop maybe did it once before or twice before, but they're not like a global expert or anything. And so she came, and then I would hear stories about how she's like, now she's sleeping over there, now she's sleeping over there, and now she's sleeping over there, and so I don't know if it was romantic or if it was, you know, just friendly. Does that answer your question?
No.
Okay, well,
more than I wanted.
It was cold. Couch surfing. There you go.
Yes. All right. I'm gonna pull up. I can't do that. Yeah, I can. Okay, so I'm just pulling up a website. I got one more quick question before we get on to the next topic. Eric says, Paul, any familiarity with the Greenhouse of the Future? It is an ebook I found, and curious if you have seen it or incorporated any of these ideas.
I think we've got it on our stuff list. And so I think if you go out to richsoil.com/stuff, now I just have to do it myself just to make sure that I'm saying the right thing, /stuff, then it loads up the stuff list. There it is. And I'm scrolling down on the stuff list looking for it.
Rich soil stuff or Permies stuff?
Well, everything on here, no, I don't see it on here. So there must be something. I thought it was on here. This is a list of a bunch of stuff that that's my stuff that we sell, and it's there you go, and it's also a bunch of other people's stuff, and we've got a link to their stuff, and we get it's a 40% affiliate fee, and so when I try to talk to people about residual income streams, then I direct them to the stuff page, and I'm like, you know, don't go to Amazon and get your 6% affiliate fee. Come over here, and this is on-topic stuff, and get a 40% affiliate fee. Help out these businesses and help yourself out a lot more.
Hey, there's Jack's truck. I was there for this one.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
So that's
Spirko's truck.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shoot. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Can you see the license plate?
That's a person I know's truck. Yeah. So dairy farming, the beautiful way. Hey, look, this book here is Shanleya's Quest. So this is, Thomas Elpel wrote Botany in a Day. And I don't know if you've ever looked at that book, but when you look at Botany in a Day, it's loaded with information. It's kind of like the book that people use to try to, learn botany. There it is. And so Tom lives around here, and he's going to be a guest instructor at our PDC. But I did a 9 podcast review of Botany in a Day, where we kind of break the book up into 9 pieces and cover it in a podcast. But I thought that by reading the book that all this botanical stuff would stick in my head, and I could start, spewing out the scientific name for all these plants that I'm doing stuff with all the time. Well, that didn't happen. Although there was there was some fun stuff in there. I can't remember what the tie-in between the fun stuff and the species are, but at one point in the book, in Botany in a Day, there's this thing about witches and the whole flying on brooms thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was okay. This is so hilarious. All right. So then the thing is that there is an herb. And if you take the herb the right way, it gives you the sensation of flying. So it's got to be some kind of hallucinogenic or something, I guess.
Okay.
So, but the thing is that you got to like do something to it, like maybe powder it maybe or something. And then you need to apply it to a mucous membrane. Now you got to keep in mind that witches were herbalists.
Yeah.
You know, like the word witch and herbalist was all the same thing, like, I don't know, a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so then what some of these lovely young women would do is they would apply it, the herb, to a broomstick, and then apply the end of the broomstick into a particular mucous membrane. And that would give them the sensation of flying. Wow. Okay, it's a dildo. They'd use the broomstick like a dildo, okay?
Yeah, I know. I get it.
Okay, all right. So then this is how they're flying on brooms. This is how it is. This is where that expression came from. Wow. Now, when you see like a little 4-year-old girl on Halloween knocking on your door saying trick or treat, she's wearing a witch's outfit, it's like, that's just fucked up. You shouldn't be dressed up like a witch like that. And look, you're carrying a broom. That's just wrong.
You need to be 18 years or older to dress up as a witch.
Especially carrying a broom. Yeah. All right. So if you back up one, then you get to Shanleya's quest. Okay. So this is kind of set up to be a children's book, but you can see it says, oh, kids age 9 to 99. So I kind of never opened it up because, you know, I'm old. I'm not a kid. And then Tom's coming to town, and we're going to go see him. And on the way there, Jocelyn's got the book. And so while I'm driving, Jocelyn reads me like some of the pages out of this children's book. And I'll be damned. This stuff for 8 different plant families now sticks in my head. It was amazing. And so I think that if you're going to try to have some of this stuff stick in your head, then you got to get this. You got to get this book.
Let's see how much it is here. $15.
No. Go back to that page. Go to the stuff page.
I'm on the stuff.
Go back to this. Okay, Scubbly. There you go. Do that one. So it's a digital download. I think it's pretty cheap.
$10.
$10 for a digital download.
Oh, but I want the hardcover. The other one's on the Amazon.
Then yeah, $15. That's like not much.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome. Well, I don't know. How long is it? Maybe it's not awesome.
I don't know. It's maybe. I mean, doesn't it say? Isn't it like? I think it's like 20 pages or something. Does it say on there?
Okay, it's a short one. No,
maybe it's more than 20, 30 pages, maybe.
There's only 16 left in stock. Well, those are going to be gone.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
awesome. Okay. Oh, this is the other thing I was going to show. This is the Wwoofer site. If anybody watching this and loves the idea of what we were talking about for woofers, it's woof.net is the one that's the one we use and most people use, I think. There are other alternative ones, but that's it. Lost me there for a second. This is the woof.net site, and this is where most people get woofers. Or you can, if you want to be a woofer, you go to farms and get yelled at by farmers. This is the site most people use.
So they do insist that all of the farms need to be organic or better. They don't have to necessarily be certified organic, but you know they're going to maintain that standard.
And the woofers write reviews of the farm, like in your experience. So
you can.
Yeah, you're not gonna get away with it. Whatever you're thinking.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking like it's a noble thing. There's in fact I talked to a guy that ran Woof International, and he was saying that they desperately needed farmers, that they had 7 woofers for every farmer. And it's kind of like, it just takes a little figuring to kind of get it to work out. Now, we just started the permaculture bootcamp thing, which, you know, because the WWOOF program says something like the woofer only has to work 4 hours a day, and the farmer will feed them. And now you've got my thing set up on, like, I can't see the, there we go. Okay. So then they work 4 hours a day, and then it's kind of like there's an expectation that the farmer is going to be teaching them stuff. And so in the meantime, the farmer is going to work 12 to 16 hours a day, and it's kind of like, and I've been to WWOOF sites where there's a bunch of woofers there, and they're sitting around soaking up the sun. And I imagine that it doesn't take too long of sitting around soaking up the sun. I mean, like the people that came here, it seemed like they were pretty adamant that they wanted to build a lot of experiences. So I just like the idea that it's a more fair exchange, and so, you know, we set up the permaculture bootcamp program, and part of it is that if you're gonna be indoors in one of our structures, you got to keep it clean. And so at the same time, now we've got it set up so that the boots cook for themselves. And we've also, I mean, rather than $1,000 a month per person, then we're kind of looking at, like, how do we get that down to $500 a month? So before it was mostly food, then came cleaning up, and then there was tool burn. We had just an incredible amount of tool burn. There was one gal I talked to that said that she had a single woofer come by for a summer, and then when he left, she had to spend $10,000 to replace all the tools that he lost or broke.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Must have broke a vehicle.
Maybe so. We have some EVs that some of our gappers were a little too hard on.
Yeah.
And but I think that the thing is that, you know, if you've got somebody who's really on top of it, then the system can work out well. And we're wanting to create something that's going to have somebody really on top of it. Now we've got a guy coming who is a natural builder, and he's gonna make sure that natural building is happening all year round here. And so then the boots will sometimes be working with Fred, who's an avid gardener and does, you know, some natural building, and then they're going to spend some time working with this new guy. So I like to think that it'll be an amazing and excellent experience.
Yeah.
All right. So you asked me what's going on. Lots is going on every day.
What the big one that's going on is this, and I want you to tell us all about this, because I'm going to be there, and I'm.
That's right. That's right. You're coming.
Yep.
You're coming. I think that there's a couple of important things. I mean, let's get to the guest instructors here in a moment. We're all power hitters. But the first off is that it's being led by Tim Barker. This is Jeff Lawton, former land manager. And so then when Jeff Lawton would teach PDCs at his place, then would, you know, would shoulder most of it. And so that way, you know, Jeff can be the diva that he is, and, you know, for the guts of it, then it was Tim leading. And now that Tim is on his own and no longer Jeff Lawton's land manager, and Tim's been here several times in the past. He taught the appropriate technology course here last year, and for the previous 2 years for that, he was one of the innovators at the Rocket Mass Heater Innovators event. And so those mass heater stuff, the rocket stove stuff that Jeff Lawton shows off, those were all creations of Tim. And so anyway, Tim has a very powerful philosophy about permaculture design course. and that it should be very heavy on the design. That's the reason is the design. And he feels that, like, for most PDCs, when you get done with the PDC, that you go away and you kind of half-ass put together one design.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't spend a lot of time doing it, and you're kind of glad it's over, you know, and that's it. Whereas Tim kind of feels like the thing to do is you're going to start drawing out your designs early, very early in the class. With other PDCs, it's like usually right around, because it's a 14-day event, like around day 10, you start drawing. And the one I took, I think we may have started around day 8 or so. Like, you know, you did a bunch of stuff for the first week, and then second week, it's like, instead of having class time, suddenly you're like, okay, there's some stuff to draw on. Here's some stuff to start drawing. So, Tim was here for like the last week we had last year, and he was saying a lot of stuff about how he really felt strongly that the students, you know, need to be doing a lot more design, much more, and I quizzed him about it 4 times more. Yeah. So, and one of the guests architect, and he's going to help people with, like, you know, drawing all the things that architects do. All right, so yeah, let's go take a look at our guest instructor, Tim. I'm not sure if he owns a shirt that is not orange. That maybe in Australia that means something. Okay, so Thomas Elpel, author of Botany in a Day, but he's also a natural builder. He's a big fan the slipstone stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
No, what's that?
Well, he's a big fan of building structures from stone, and then you've got a slip form, and you basically kind of throw all your rocks and cement into the slip form. It sets, and then you slide it up.
Oh, okay.
And then you throw in more rocks and cement. I mean, when you like the Nearings, when they wrote their book, is it A Good Life? Oh man, I'm embarrassed. But okay, so when the Nearings wrote their book, then they're basically advocating don't build stuff out of wood, because wood rots, and then you're constantly doing this maintenance. You know, build out of stone. Now, of course, the downside is that stone tends to be like not very insulative. So anyway, Thomas Elpel has a technique where you can own structure much faster, because that's the downside of building a stone structure is that you got to have some skills, and it's going to take a long time. And with Thomas's techniques, it goes much faster, and you don't need as many skills.
This Living Homes book here, guys, is what looked like covered that slipstone stuff. Yeah, stonemasonry. Can't read it quite.
And the big thing that he does is that primitive living stuff. I mean, I think that's like 90% of his life, is that he has people come and live on his property, and they're doing all this stuff with like brain tanning, and you know, it's like, okay, we're going to take you into the woods. You need to get by for a week, and you don't get a pocket knife. You don't get matches. You don't get anything in your pockets at all. And you're going to need food and shelter, and you're going to need to stay warm. And so then he teaches people that kind of thing. That's an enormous part of his life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's guest instructor number 1.
Yeah.
Guest instructor number 2, if anybody's listened to my podcast at all, they usually tell me that, like, I've met 2 different people that have told me that each one has said that they've listened to all of my podcasts twice, and the podcast with Helen Attow they've listened to 4 times. So back in 1996, I took the master gardener training, and Helen was the person doing the training at that time. And she also had this amazing market garden. She was the I don't know if you've ever been to the Saturday market in Missoula, but it's like the most epic market I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot all over the country. And Helen's booth was the premier booth she had the sweetest spot and the sweetest stuff at the Saturday market. So she really had this, market gardening thing down. And I went out to our operation and expert composter. Wow. Taking composting to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And then she followed that behind, and she went and spent time managing a 2,000-acre organic farm. Right. And she was, when she was in college, she was an intern with Masanobu Fukuoka.
Oh, man. Cool.
That's pretty huge.
Yeah.
And so a lot of her work is about trying to continue Fukuoka's work.
Okay.
Okay. Now, now she's working, doing a lot with food forests and orchards and things of that nature. But the thing is that she's a soil scientist, and she's sharp, and basically she and I will disagree on a lot of things. I mean, of course we agree on things, but we tend to not talk about the things we agree on. And I think that when we make a podcast with her and I, we will argue about some finer point for ages. And I think that the way that we argue is good. We have very good reports, very respectful. I think one of our most famous arguments is that I felt confident that legumes will slough off nitrogen. So they'll accumulate nitrogen for themselves, and then they'll slough significant amounts of nitrogen while they're alive. And Helen said, none of them give off any nitrogen until they're dead. You have to either stress them or kill them completely, but just leaving them alone, they won't give off nitrogen. So we had this big debate. And of course, we're giving Google a workout during the debate to argue about it. But when it was all done, we put it up as a podcast. Somebody found 1,500 different white papers that supported my position. So I won.
No, I thought they attracted nitrogen. They weren't putting off nitrogen.
Well, they develop a symbiotic relationship with certain bacteria.
Uh-huh.
And then they're able to pull nitrogen out of the atmosphere, because the atmosphere is nitrogen, well, 78% nitrogen. And then, so these bacteria are able to access the nitrogen in the atmosphere and then work it into legumes through nodules. There's a little bit more to it than that. But the thing is that a legume has an unfair advantage over plants that are nitrogen hungry, in that it has this technique to get more nitrogen than they can get. Now, when they get to the point where they're like nitrogen heavy, like, oh, look at this, I've got loads of nitrogen now, and all those other plants want it, and it's and gobs, it sucks to be them. Well, part of what the plant is going to do is it's going to make a little teeny tiny microscopic root hair, and then 2 hours later it's going to slough off that root hair. It's going to let that root hair go. So now the question is that root hair loaded with nitrogen? Now, there are some legumes that put out much less nitrogen than others. Black locust versus honey locust. Black locust sloughs off a lot of nitrogen while it's living, and it's very generous around it. Honey locust is not.
Mm-hmm.
And so honey locust is kind of greedy. So still sloughs off some degree of nitrogen. It's just not as much.
Do you still get the nitrogen nodules?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Otherwise it's not a legume. I think that's like part of the definition of being a legume.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, I know this guy. While you explain this guy, I'm gonna go get a beer.
Okay, all right. So Ernie Wisner, not only is Ernie like a co-author of the Rocket Mass Heater Builder's Guide, and he's the star of both of my 4 DVD sets, the Do-It-Yourself Rocket Mass Heaters as well as Wood Burning Stoves 2.0. But for 3 years, he worked. He was an intern of sorts, or I don't know what exactly to call it, but he lived with Ian. And Ianto Evans, of course, very famous permaculturalist, very famous natural builder. He's the inventor of the rocket. So Ernie's built 700 rocket mass heaters, and most of those he built while he was at Ianto's place. And there were 2 different occasions where Masanobu Fukuoka came to the United States, and on both occasions, he went and hung out at Ianto's place. And while he was there, then the tour of Ianto's place. And on one of those trips, it wasn't just Fukuoka, it was also Bill Mollison. So there's Ernie. He's, you know, being the servant of sorts to Fukuoka, Mollison, and Ianto Evans.
Wow.
So Ernie's got a lot. Now Ernie's going to be at the event for the whole event. I don't know if you've ever visited with Ernie, but all you got to do is if you want to sit down with Ernie and have a long chat, you sit down and you look him in the eye and you say, boats. And now you're going to be occupied for several hours.
Okay.
Because Ernie used to be a fleet captain, and so he managed the whole fleet. But the ocean is like passion, and he's he's building a boat with his dad. Does with a lot of his life. So. But lots and lots of stuff, about Ernie, and Ernie's like my brother. Erica hangs out with Ernie a lot, and then really with the Rocket Mass Heater, it's like Erica's the author, Ernie kind of helps some, and so in fact, I wonder if the cover should say it's written by Erica Wisner and Ernie Wisner. I'm not sure if it does or not, but it's. But the thing is that Erica is a science teacher, and so she's very good at teaching. You're trying to zoom in on the book?
Yeah, it says Erica and Ernie, so it's by Erica and Ernie.
You're gonna have a Rocket Mass Heater workshop. You have Ernie and Erica there, and then yeah, it does. It says Erica Wisner. Okay, cool. Erica Wisner and Ernie Wisner. She did most of the work of writing the book. Ernie's built more rocket mass heaters than she has. But anyway, and then she's also another book, that a science textbook that she'd written. But the big thing is that when you have an event, then Ernie's all about like, just get out of the way, I'm gonna build this thing. And Erica is the one who'll be patient with you and answer all of your questions, and is like, thinking about what words she can say to help you understand. And Ernie's a little less patient. So Erica will also be there for the entire PDC.
Oh, good.
And yeah, and they're going to be teaching certain segments. I think they're probably going to be doing a fair bit of natural building. I don't think that there's like a PDC doesn't have a segment on like rocket mass heaters, because of course you've got, Tim Barker, Ernie Wisner, Erica Wisner there. It's like, oh, this is going to be a rocket mass heater PDC. I don't think that that's really going to happen. I mean, of course, people will be able to ask lots of questions about rocket mass heaters and stuff like that, and you're going to have like world's experts there. It'll be the rocket mass heatery, the most RMH-ish PDC there can be, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say this PDC will have rocket mass heaters in it.
Right. I think we got a dozen here, right? So, during the tour, if nothing else, you'll get to look at them. But it'll be like May and June. I don't think we want to fire. It'll already be plenty warm. All right. Next, who's next on the list? I'm looking at. Oh, there. Okay, awesome. Jacqueline Freeman. Oh man. So she's got this brand new book out called Song of Increase, and at first I thought that was a stupid title, and then when I actually read the book, it's like, no, that is the perfect title. And Jacqueline, I mean, her husband Joseph is this guy. It's like he teaches something, and I'm not sure teach is even the right word. He shares about this thing that he does with horses and other large animals, where he kind of sits with them for days. And so then Jacqueline would do this with the bees. She's got like this whole, and she just sits out there with the bees for days and days and days, and she hears every little sound, and she watches every one go, and I don't know, she bonds with the bees. But I've been to a lot of farms, and I've seen a lot of people keeping bees and doing bee stuff, honeybee stuff. And usually when I'm there, then they're like, okay, let's do an inspection. I've got my own custom bee suit, which is where you go and you buy the most freakishly giant bee suit, and then you have to modify it so that I can fit into it. So I got a bee suit, and then and so I go, and they always like, well, let's open up the hive and have a look, see how things are going. We'll find the queen and we'll check it out, and then I go to Jacqueline's, and it's she's hosting a workshop for people that are keen on bees. So for the whole group, she opens up a hive, but she will not put the lid on until she is sure that not a single bee will be harmed.
Oh my God.
And so it was like 10 minutes of her talking to the bees and like, oh no, you get in, and so until she could get to a point where she could put the lid back on. I mean, it was just that important to her that a bee didn't get hurt. Now, let me take this here a little bit further. The first time I ever met Jacqueline, it was a Sepp Holzer event, and Sepp was going to be down in Vancouver, Washington, and so there were like 4 different farms in the area that you could at while you're down there for the event. And so you got to, pay $50 a night or something like that. So I said, I'll do that. And they assigned me to Jacqueline's house. Wow. And so I get there, and it's already dark, and she says, okay, well, we got 2 rooms. You can take your choice which room you want. There's the one that's heated, and then the one that's not heated. And it's like, I'm kind of thinking like, why would you do that? And so I asked her like, something like that. Why would you have one room heated and one room not heated? Like, do people come up and like, oh, I want not heated? Like that's, and she says, well, it's because that's where the ladybugs are.
Oh.
It's like, okay, I don't know what exactly that means. You've got, so then we go into the unheated room, and she pulls back. There's like a towel hanging on the wall. She kind of pulls it back, and there's like, I don't know, several thousand, maybe several hundred, maybe a couple thousand ladybugs behind the towel. And she says, I think there's like about 200,000 in the wall. And this is where they are dormant through the winter. And then they'll all leave in the spring.
Okay.
And it's like, whoa. And I said, well, I'm going to stay in the ladybug room. It's just kind of, I've never stayed in the ladybug room before. The ladybugs. So then the next thing is it's like, she says, come over here. And if you come out the room, go over to the stairs, put your hand on the wall right here. And it's wintertime. It's February. And I put my hand on this exterior wall, and it's really warm. Like, not quite hot, but really warm. And she says, there's a colony of bees living in the wall right here. And of course, bees like to keep things at 96 degrees, and so it feels very warm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then the last item like that was that I was there in the summertime once, and she says that every night at 5 o'clock, they go through the house and they open up all the doors in the house. And then in a couple of minutes, a bat comes along, flies in the back door, goes to every room in the house eating all the bugs, and then flies back out.
Oh, he scored. He found the perfect place.
So now the key is that this is kind of how they live, with this very symbiotic relationship with nature.
Yeah.
Everything they do is like that.
That's cool.
And so I'm glad that she's going to be at our permaculture design course. And she's going to teach a segment or two on honeybees. Now, each guest instructor teaches at least 3 segments.
Yeah.
And so, and each segment is an hour and a half long. So I think Jacqueline's going to be with us for several days, but I'm not sure about that. There's no commitment, but she told me she wanted to come for like 4 or 5 days, maybe even a week. And she's just excited about the event. I said, that's cool. No problem.
The beekeepers I've met definitely had that kind of relationship with bees, or not that much, or they had a relationship of more than normal with insects. And it just reminded me of Michael Jordan, the bee whisperer. He has a design where he's got his front door is a beehive, so that if the cops ever come and bash the door in, they're fucked.
Surprise!
And he's got a design for it's a pulley in the house, like an emergency pulley. When he pulls that, there's beehives along his fence, all along his fence, and it shakes them all.
Well, that doesn't seem very respectful to the bees.
No, it's not, but it keeps the people out of his place. All right.
Bad guys coming around and
Yeah.
sick 'em! Sick 'em!
Yeah.
I gotta tell you my Michael Jordan story. Actually, I got a couple. So, but my first story is that when I was in the 9th grade, there was a kid that was in the 8th grade, and he decided to break my woodworking project. He just picked it up and threw it on the ground and smiled. And so I'm a fucking, and back then in the 9th grade, I was probably double this guy's mass. I don't know what he thought would happen, but I don't know. And then if you just do it, because he threw it on the ground, he Jordan, and he threw it on the ground, and he broke it, and he looked at me and grinned like, what the fuck are you going to do? I did what anybody would do. You punch the fucker in the face. and so I at his office, and I just hit him and he hit the floor. And then so I'm sitting in the principal's office and the health teacher, and then I'm waiting. I'm sitting there to see the principal, and there go 2 guys with a stretcher, from the ambulance. Apparently, he didn't come out of it until he was at the hospital for several hours.
Good
But I don't know. I mean, why would you want to pick a fight with a giant guy? I don't understand that. I mean, and I didn't even think about it. It's like, that's just instinct. That's just what you do. Somebody does something like that, you just hit him. I would imagine if he was bigger than me, I still would have tried to hit him. You know, I don't know. So in the end, we both got 2 weeks of detention. I got 2 weeks of detention sitting in the library, and he got 2 weeks of detention scrubbing toilets. So, but that's my first Michael Jordan story. Now, the second one is that Jack got really, really angry with me about Michael Jordan. And that's because I recorded a podcast about reverence for bees, honeybees. And I was at this event a few years ago, and there was a guy there, and he said he went by I'm the bee whisperer. Well, it turns out there's about 200 different people who all call themselves the bee whisperer.
Okay.
And this dude was not Michael.
Okay.
Flying monsters. So this is the thing he wanted to impress upon these kids. Bees are not flying monsters. So he took a super full of bees and went bang, 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 bang. You know, kind of like the whole let's activate our fence defense thing, you know. But he's like, and I'm kind of thinking like, dude, that's not cool, man. Mr. Bee Whisperer, that doesn't look very whispery to me.
You're whispering hate crimes into their face. Oh man.
I thought it was horrible to the bees. I thought that was really disrespectful. That was awful. That was awful. And so I mentioned this in a podcast, and Jack jumping down my throat because he's defending Michael Jordan.
The different bee whisperer.
It took days until I could convince Jack that I was talking about a totally different guy.
Yeah.
And then I finally said, look, go to Google right now and type in bee whisperer and tell me who comes up as number one. And it's like, I know that on my results, the first 10 were not. And so then Jack finally, you know, allowed me to live. Woo, he was pissed.
Yeah, you don't want to get on his bad side.
So, oh, look at all these comments. See, for a while there, I wasn't able to read the comments.
How would that have been improved?
I still need to submit my design for PermaEthos design.
Do it. Well, you have a lifetime. I mean, you do whatever you want.
Here's Eric Little says, I got both your DVD sets, Paul. Love them. Wanting to do a rocket mass heater at my new house. She blinded me with science. That must be about Erica. The smoker might be nice to fire up. That's true. I think it'd be cool if we could fire up the smoker. We've got this rocket smoker that's really awesome. Oh man, we've had some delicious food out of that thing. Plus, another cool thing is that Ernie built us a rocket kiln. I think it'd be kind of cool to, like, you know, do a little pottery stuff, throw it in there, and fire that thing up. Let's see. Love Michael's demeanor, laid back. All right. Should have taken his hand and shoved it in after banging them like that. Sounds like a dickhead. Dickhead sounds. I think I would go with dickhead. Yeah.
It's a good description.
All right, so there you go. That's the permaculture design course we got coming up.
You still got one more, and I got more questions about the piece.
Oh, right. Davin Hoyt is he's an architect, and he's going to be there, and he's going to be there the whole time helping people draw stuff. He's been here several times out to Wheaton Labs. He's done tons of stuff for us. He's gone and helped out the ants with a lot of their designs. And whenever I'm trying to talk about Wofadis, he's always great to draw me up something. He draws stuff up by hand a lot. And but he's savvy at all kinds of different tools, but it seems like drawing stuff by hand is his thing. And he does amazing work, and he scratches it out so fast. And so I think that's a big thing. I mean, if you can build your confidence in being able to draw a mat, I think that's a big part. Because the other thing is you got to be able to express the design. You got to bring all, because in permaculture we talk about all the little bits and bobs all the time. We talk about, you know, rocky mass heaters, and we talk about hugelkultur, and we talk about a berm, and we talk about, but it's like these are all techniques, artifacts. These are all like little pieces.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like you how you bring it all together. There's so much more to that. So
that's the great thing about a PDC, especially when you get a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds with a bunch of different knowledge. They all have something or some way to apply that knowledge to what they're learning in the PDC. And it's great when they're, you know, the sharing. And I don't know if you guys do this, but I love putting groups together of people.
All right, you cut out.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, I really love when you put people in groups together, because they get to start really sharing that knowledge, like having them work on a design together or something like that.
So when I took my PDC in 2005, I had been doing permaculture for years, and I was excited to take my PDC. I mean, the reason why you take a PDC is that it's like, I just want all my life, all day, every day to be about permaculture. And it's like the best way is to attend a PDC. But when I took it, we got to the part where we were starting to do the design, they broke us off into groups. And I think that the lesson that's to be learned is that people are so different, and you're trying to collaborate on a thing. Now, I had up to that point, you know, my corporate horror life was to be a guy who got companies unstuck. So I would go in and I would take a look at what's going on, and I would get the company to move forward despite problems. And so when I was flying there, I kind of made a commitment to myself that I'm not going to be that guy during this event. I mean, not only do I harsh everybody smooth, and basically I make a lot of people cry, but I didn't want that. This is going to be fun for me. And so I'm making a commitment to myself. I'm going to not be Mr. Pressure everybody to get it fucking done. I'm going to just zip it and not do that. So now I didn't realize that part of it was that we're going to all make this design together. and it's like, and I'm trying to be real of us. And this one guy in the group told us all what to do, gave us all assignments. He split for like a day. It's like he's just bossy, and it's like I just thought it was hilarious, because it's like this is, and then on top of that, I thought that the direction that he gave was shit. I thought he was so like right when he left, then everybody kind of like was talking about like, I don't know if that's the best thing to do, and I said I don't think I want to do the thing he told me to do. I think I would rather do something else. And he didn't give me time to say anything like that. So, and then he'll come back and he might be displeased, but I kind of feel like it wasn't cool for him to leave either. The key is that all the groups were going through something. Because all the groups, it turns out that if you look at each one of those groups, all the groups are made of people.
Yeah.
And each one of them, they're so human, and all that implies. Every person shows up at everything they do with a big fucking bucket of crazy. And it's like, it was comedy. You could make a sitcom out of this.
Well,
And now I've been to all these other PDCs afterwards where I'm a guest instructor or, whatever. And it's like I see this over and over and over again. And of course, it's like a different episode every time, but the same comedy channel.
yeah, you got to be, well, one thing you definitely don't want too large of groups, because you end up with one or two people out of the group doing the design and everybody else sitting around. That's what I found.
Well, Tim is super passionate about all of this. And he wants, so like the class is limited to 24 students, which, by the way, we only have 10 tickets left.
Ooh.
And we haven't even been selling them for a month yet. Yeah, we haven't even been selling them a month yet, and we've only got 10 tickets left.
And I'm about to send out a newsletter on this, guys, so if you want it, you should get it now.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what Tim has in mind to address what you're suggesting there, but I think it is a very good point. And I do think I've seen some of that where people kind of just, it's like, I just want to phone it in. I just want to get the certificate when it's over. And so if I kind of like, shrink and look small, I can get by. I suspect Tim won't let them do that.
I think what happens is there's one or two people in the group that are just more outgoing or more just like, let's get this shit done. And the rest of them are like, okay. Like they're not demanding enough. They don't step in and say, wait a minute, I got to be part of this too. So anyway, what's the daily schedule like?
This schedule is brought to you by Tim made the first pass, and then I made it more brutal. But one of the things we're doing at this PDC is food is included, and Tim was really adamant about that. In that he kind of feels like there's only 2 weeks and there's so much to cover, and the guest instructors are everybody's going to want to like drink and all of that, and there's really not time for people to, be cooking their own food or whatever. Yeah. So you gotta have food. So, in fact, I should augment this based on some conversations I've had with Fred last night. In that, like we were talking, clear that breakfast is like 7 to 7:30, and then 7:30 to 8 is cleanup. Mm-hmm. Because I noticed like every PDC I've ever been to, breakfast will be at 7, and then people will show up at like 7:56 to get breakfast. And it's like, no, there's already people trying to clean everything out so they can go and see all the stuff. And, and these people are like trying to grab food and take it with them to eat it while the stuff's going on. So I'm kind of thinking like, oh yeah, I want to be, because when I took my PDC, I mean, I was there before 7. I wanted to start talking to everybody about permaculture.
Yeah.
And in fact, while I was at my PDC, my PDC that I took was an amazingly powerful experience. And the thing that there was 24 students. And 24 is a pretty standard number for the number of students at a PDC. Mm-hmm. And what went through my mind was, how do I live this way? Like what I'm experiencing at this class all day, every day for the rest of my life. I want it to be just like what I was experiencing at that class. So, and then the other thing is that it said when I took the PDC back in 2005, the thing I got before was like, you have to read these 5 books before you arrive. And so I had read all 5, and then of course, I don't know, hundreds of other books, but only maybe like 5 others on permaculture. There were maybe, 11 or 12 books even out on permaculture at the time. Yeah. And so I'd read most of them, and I was so bonkers about it and so passionate to be meeting all the people there and stuff that I don't know, I became obsessed on every moment. I mean, not only through breakfast, but through every meal, all I wanted to do was to visit with people about permaculture. And I just ate it up all the time. And now I don't know, some of the other people there, they were not as enthusiastic as I was. But that's to be expected, I suppose. But I've been to a lot of events where there were a lot of people that were just that bonkers about it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like a lot of people say, oh, I don't need to take a permaculture design course. And it's true, you don't. There's no reason to do it, really. You know, you go ahead.
$1,400 to $2,400 are fucking pretty motivated.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too. Is a lot of PDCs are like $2,500 to $3,000.
Yeah.
And we're offering this one for $1,100.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And now there are some that have been like $1,400 and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and I think we're doing pretty good at offering at a very low cost. And I kind of think that you'd be hard pressed to find a PDC with a superstar lineup of guest instructors as we have.
Especially, that's a really good price, especially if you're feeding everybody, because it's fucking expensive to feed people. 24 people, it's expensive to feed. Okay. All right.
What are we doing now?
Well, all right. So there's more I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to make sure we got everything out on the PDC. Head over to richsoil.com/pdc.jsp or just Google Rich Soil PDC.
Well, now, I'd say like 4 out of 5 of the tickets that we're selling, people are going to attend both the PDC and the ATC. Mm-hmm. So the appropriate technology course happens right after the PDC. You get a day break, a 1-day break, and then we jump right into the ATC.
How long is the ATC?
2 weeks.
Okay.
So, and Tim was here teaching the ATC last year. But the appropriate technology course, I mean, if you look at, can you click over to look at that? I think you got to scroll down a bit. Scroll. There it is. Appropriate technology course. See it? There you go. And is doing low-tech stuff as appropriate technology. And I think we might have 5 solar ovens here now that are commercial solar ovens. And then I remember last year, I don't know if he'll do it again this year. I don't think he should ever, because what he does is like on the first day, he asks everybody like, what's the stuff you're the most into? And then he changes the class through the 2 weeks based on what people's interests are. But I know that last year he had a contest to see who could boil water the fastest with their own, and it's like it was all cardboard and foil.
Yeah.
You know, and so then we had this massive cardboard and foil. But like, which shape is the best shape to do a solar oven? Because everybody gets the idea. It's not that profound, you know, but it's like when you try stuff, there are some designs that work much better than others, and it's a quick thing. It doesn't take very long. Cardboard and foil, I mean, we're talking about, what, 20 minutes? So most of the time is spent, of course, in actually boiling the water.
Yeah.
All right, that was, and then he also did a solar food dehydrator, was another big project last year. I'm trying to look through the list here and see all the different things. Oh, he did a rocket hot water heater as part of the ATC last year. I'm trying to think of like what were other things. It seems like there were a couple of other really cool things. Oh, there was also a rocket cook stove that was built. It is actually kind of more like it was already built, and so then the class took it apart and put it back together to kind of see all the insides. Oh, everybody at the course learned at least the basics of woodworking, and also everybody did welding. I think everybody got in a good hour of welding, and welding something that was required. So like one of the things that we had here is Peter Vandenberg's Batchbox Rocket Mass Heater, which I gotta say, like, I don't want to ever see a Batchbox Rocket Mass Heater without a door ever again. And it seems like this has gotten to be everybody's so excited about the Batchbox designs, but they just suck if they don't have a good door. And so that was a big thing that Tim and the ATC class last year took on, was to weld up a very good door for Peter's Batchbox system. So you keep doing this thing where you're changing the view all the time, and I keep trying to get back to look at the chat thing there.
Chat, I'm pulling up something for our next, what we're going to talk about next.
Okay. The Appropriate Technology course I thought was very cool last year, and Tim's amazing. Most people are buying tickets to both events, but we're selling tickets. There have been a few that have bought tickets for just one or just the other. In fact, I think we have exactly 14 students each right now already signed up, and like probably 10 of those students are bought a ticket for both. All right. It says, keep up the good work, and this show is great. I'm breaking contact, and we'll catch you next week. Oh, yeah? Well, piss off, Billy. Just be that way.
We got someone's watching the Facebook stream of it. Says, in the scenario of having a commercially oriented permaculture system where the main source of income is produce, what would be the minimum land surface for it to be financially viable?
Oh, man.
People do it. People do it on a quarter acre. I mean, it just depends on.
Yeah. I mean, okay. You've seen the Wheaton eco scale. Did we look at the Wheaton eco?
We haven't done this.
Yeah, it depends. See, there's Eric there saying it depends. But it's kind of like I kind of feel like the question is wrong. I want to take a hammer to the question, and because it's kind of like that's a level 2, and I want to take people up to level 5. But if I talk about level 5, it seems crazy. And so here's the Wheaton eco scale. And Olaf made this graph. I did not make the graphic. The graphic is awesome. What an amazing, cool graphic. Yeah. And this has been so useful. So the first thing I want to emphasize is that, because you just said quarter acre, and I kind of feel like, yeah, you can do it on a quarter of an acre, but you got to have massive inputs. You're bringing all this organic matter in from us, and I want people to not do that. Please don't do that.
It depends.
Well, we're back to it depends.
Full of people doing that on quarter acres are doing different things. It works.
The next thing is that so many people start focusing on, like, I'm going to sell all this food, and I kind of feel like in permaculture systems, feed yourself first, and then you can sell the excess, or you can sell or give away or whatever you want to do, but have excess after you feed yourself. Then people kind of get this mentality of, like, I want to do permaculture and I'm going to grow permaculture food, and then I want to, like, sell it for a price that's lower than what Safeway is selling it for.
Not going to happen.
And I kind of feel like that's okay to, like, build a market. Like, I'll sell you this food for less than Safeway, but you got to give me your email address, and don't give me a shit email address either. And build your marketing is the idea. And it's kind of like, okay, I can understand that, but for the most part, it's like their whole design from the very beginning is like, I wish that I could work 16 hours a day and earn 20 cents an hour for all my effort. That would be the best. And I kind of feel like I think that a permaculture food grown on an aged soil in polyculture, where it's like the soil is minimally disturbed for the harvest, that's like super food. It's like, this stuff can cure cancer kind of food. Not only that, but it's like you go and you talk to your vegans, and it's like, hey, vegans, I mean, they care so much. And, you know, tip of my hat to all vegans everywhere, giving up bacon for the betterment of the world, and you know, lots of other reasons. But the thing is like, okay, I want to eat vegan. A lot of vegans, not everyone, but a lot of them. It's like, I'm going to give up eating bacon because I don't want a creature with a face to get killed in order to feed me. And then, of course, I think, which is noble. That is awesome. That is so cool. And if you've ever harvested an animal on your own, that right there is, you know, I think you quickly learn, like, I've decided to be a vegan. All right. We got that. That's cool. But then when you go out and you buy this organic food that's, you know, for your vegan diet, a lot of little fuzzy creatures got killed during the harvest, you know, because this big machinery came through and just destroyed everything. And it killed birds and geese and voles and all kinds of creatures that were living there, and they all got squished. And in fact, that's the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma, kind of goes into that whole thing of like, okay, how many little critters got squished for the vegan diet, and how many little critters got squished on the omnivore's diet? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, if we're counting souls here, is it the number of souls, or is it like, because if you kill a cow, that's fewer souls, but there's a lot of meals in that one soul. So maybe the size of the soul matters.
It's all the cuteness of the soul. It's all about the cuteness of the soul.
Well, I think each vegan's going to have a different story.
Yeah.
And then I kind of think, okay, look, you grew this permaculture food, and you harvested it in such a way that no little furry creatures died or birds died or anything like that during the harvest. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's so huge, and it's an aged soil. Organic fields, they plow them 3 times a year to try to minimize the total weeds, and they've got massive inputs. So I think that a huge part of it is like, make people aware of that, and then say like, I've got food that wasn't harvested that way. So rather than like, I'm going to grow some carrots, and when it comes to price, I'm going to compete with Safeway. So rather than playing it that way, I think what's good is the whole idea of like, let's let people know about how you harvested this, and try and sell it to them at a higher price, because it's a premium product.
Yeah. All right. I think the way to do it is hunt for your meat, grow your food or raise your meat, and then the excess from that, then start selling, and then build it up from there. That's the way you gotta do it. You gotta take care of yourself first, and then start building.
So how many acres do you need? And that's the question is like the minimum. And I think the big thing you got to keep in mind is that, like, let's feed 3 people and you've got 6 acres. Then it's like the amount of work you're going to put in is very, very tiny. But if you try to feed 3 people on 1 acre, you're going to have to do a lot more work. Mm-hmm. So part of the equation is like, how many acres do you have? The other thing is that, and this was the conclusion that I came to back in 2005. I want to do all the things. I want systems that feed systems that feed systems. And I learned I cannot do it by myself. And then, of course, as I was talking about earlier, I want to go back to the day where I'm taking my PDC, and I want to live like that all day long, every day for the rest of my life. So community is a factor. And so there's some of that. And then there's the whole idea of like, if you eat beef, then like the minimum size of the acreage should be a minimum of 80, preferably 200 acres. And so it's like, okay, So 12 to 20 people sharing a plot of land, and all working together without stabbing each other, being all people-y and human-y and stuff, and all the drama that might come with it. So we got to solve this people living together issue. And then it's like, okay, what's your minimum number of acres? And well, if you're feeding 12 to 20 people, you got to figure, like, to make it easy, it's an acre per person. And you can do that relatively easily. I think that if you go much larger than that, it doesn't too much of a difference. But then, of course, there's the whole thing about doing the paddock shift system with the cattle, and that adds some acreage to the system. I mean, and then there's the whole concept of, like, are you just going to provide salad greens to 200 people, or are you going to provide diet? That's a radically different thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, when it's one person per acre, that's the whole diet for a whole year. And that's, you know, some pretty intensive systems. You know, but with minimal amount of work. The next thing is that when you've got large acreage, you tend to approach it in a different fashion. And so you got to kind of ramp up. You're gonna be like, permaculture systems for a quarter of an acre. Too often people get onto a bunch of acreage and they want to do it all for the whole acreage, and it's like, oh, that's too much. You're not going to do it. And then the other thing is, a lot of people are like, I'm going to make this enormous compost pile, and I'm going to mulch with nothing but the best homemade compost. And it's kind of like, if you're on a quarter acre, you can do that, and that you can make that dream come true. And it's beautiful. It makes an amazing garden. But when you've got 80 acres, it's like, oh, you're not going to do that. No, let it go. Let it go. Try to add a quarter of an acre every year, or maybe if it's multiple people, maybe you can add an acre every year or something like that.
Well, I think it's good to design, if you have 80 acres, design the whole 80 acres. So at least the large scale design stuff, the earthwork stuff, have that as a design, and then intensively work on 1 acre at a time, or whatever manageable amount you can. I wouldn't, more than 5 is ridiculous. Really 1 acre at a time is a good way to go. So you have your full design, you piece it into 1 acre chunks, and you focus on each acre at a time, making those successful. Because the smaller the area you're working in, the more intensive of a design you do. And the more you're paying attention to what that piece of land needs.
Do your earthworks first. Oh man, it's always so sad to see level 2 people so enthusiastic about gardening, and they're doing so much, and they're planting their canes and they're planting their trees, but they haven't done their earthworks, and so
and they have to go in and trash it all.
Yeah. Oh man, that is just so sad.
Yeah.
Now Eric has posted something about exotic mushrooms, and it's like, it's true. I mean, if you're trying to just make coin, wow, you know, morel mushrooms, you get a lot of money for that stuff. So, but yeah, mushrooms generally bring in some of the top dollar, and then those mushrooms generally, I don't know if they're for sale at Safeway or not. But I mean, you're getting more per pound.
What's nice is you walk into grocery stores now, and they're definitely getting smarter. They're understanding that they need to start providing a lot more local foods, because that's where the market is. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to compete with whatever store-bought beef.
That's another thing too, is if you're trying to sell food at the farmer's market, or sell food to a grocery store, which then resells it to the consumer, I think that's not a great strategy. I mean, it is kind of your level 2 strategy. And I'd much rather see something that's level 5 or 6 strategy. And at level 5 or level 6, it's going to be, I mean, like, you know, level 10 is what Sepp Holzer does. You know, take a good look at what that guy's doing. And he's not selling food because, you know,
he's not allowed to.
The government wants to get all involved. They want to put their hands up your skirts and stuff like that. And like, you know, but of course their whole policy is like, you don't want to eat that. It came out of the dirt. You know, they'd rather sell you Coca-Cola. You know, that's good. That's good nutrition there. It's safe. It came out of a factory. We know every speck of what's in that. You know, and it's like, and for some people, that's what they like. They like the idea of something that's like, oh, I only want to eat things that came out of a factory. And I think that there gets to be a day when people have some horrible illness or cancer or something like that, and it's like, maybe I'm going to try eating better for a while, and maybe that'll make a difference. All I'm saying is, like, when you're trying to make money, when you're thinking about making money, and I've got a whole 2-hour presentation about how to make the big bucks with permaculture. It's kind of like, rather than trying to come up with a plan for poverty, try to make a plan for like getting a professional wage. And I kind of think like, okay, think about like a professional wage is $100,000 a year. You know, and granted, you could say a professional wage is $60,000 a year or something like that. But why not shoot for $100,000 or $200,000 a year? So then you start thinking like, okay, then how much money per hour does that work out to be? And now, now everything you do is got to be like, okay, if I follow that path, I make minimum wage, which is less than $50 an hour, which is $50 an hour. If my math is correct, that's $100,000 a year. And so then it's like, okay, everything you do should be something where you're going to end up with $50 an hour or better. And it might take some time to build your market and get to that $100,000 a year. But I think it's good to be looking at like the stuff about the mushrooms is a good one. You could be earning $50 an hour harvesting mushrooms.
Yeah, which is.
And then the next one is going to be like, well, Sepp Holzer, he just charges people to enter his property, and then he turns them loose, and then they harvest their own food. So you're like, oh, a U-pick operation. No, it's very much not a U-pick operation. It's very much it's a tour, and it doesn't sell food at all. They just take it on the way out. Because if you were to sell food, then that falls under all kinds of regulations and stuff, and that's just pain in the ass.
You encourage theft.
But then,
I like it when people steal.
But what about the idea of having a yurt on your property, and people come and they do staycation, glamping, something like that, and then you're like, oh, and you guys can help yourselves to all this food that's here. Or you could even say like, okay, you come and you pay this much money and whatever, and we'll cook you food. We'll cook you some really awesome permaculture food. Now you find that you're getting, you know, $50 an hour for your time and your food and stuff like that. You're doing much better. I think that kind of mentality should be, you know, the place to think more. Now, all right, so then the question was, what's the minimum number of acres to be able to, you know, do a market garden for a certain number of people or something like that? And so you can kind of see how I'm kind of thinking like, no, I wanna, you know, hit the question with the hammer. I want to smack it and bust it up, and like, no, let's ask different questions than that, rather than like getting married to poverty for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and it's also going to depend on your environment. I mean, there's a lot of factors in how many acres you're getting. The other big thing to think about when you're doing this is distribution, because distribution can be a big pain in the ass. Have you ever heard of Local Orbit?
No.
Okay, so there's this lady, it's a company, or it's a software company, and Erica Block is who runs it. And they break up on you?
Internet or my internet that's gone to shit? You were gone. You were gone there for a bit.
Yeah, I can tell when it happens. So it's Erica Block who's running this company, and she's awesome. And what this thing is she sets up food hubs. Okay, so this software is for the farmer and the hub, and it integrates the two where, let's say a grocery store or a restaurant says, I need 10 pounds of morel mushrooms. Well, you can provide 2 pounds of morel mushrooms. So you can't sell to that, just to that restaurant because you don't have enough. And so what Local Orbit does is it facilitates that by saying, okay, I got 20 vendors that have mushrooms for sale. You say you need 10 pounds. Here they are, from 2 pounds from this one, 2 pounds from this one. It's like, and it's very centric in what kind of food you're getting and what kind of farms these are and what kind of produce you're going to get from them. It's really cool. And if you're going to get into selling food like that for making money, definitely look into some food hubs and what kind of software they're using, because it makes a huge difference. Okay.
All right. Did we answer that question well enough?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for putting up the Wheaton Eco Scale.
Yeah, you done with that? I'm looking at level 8 here. That's going nuts. 9, you got a community. Yeah.
So at 9, there's only 10 people because it's a reverse logarithmic scale. You can only have 10 people at level 9. And so I think I picked 6, and then Olaf added 4 more. And but the key is, of course, so at level 9 there's 10. At level 8 there's 100 people, and at level 7 there's 1,000 people. This is the eco scale. There's been a few different people that have taken the Wheaton Eco Scale, and they've come up. They've said they've called it the Wheaton Eco Scale, but they've added like some other element to it, like Jacob Fisker out at Early Retirement Extreme. He's used it for early retirement extreme stuff.
That guy's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, you recommended that book to me years ago, and I read it, and it changed my life.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people get out of the city and be able to get onto acres and do permaculture with other permaculture people who are bonkers about permaculture. And I think that stuff like Early Retirement Extreme or Mortgage Free by Rob Roy, these are powerful tools that help you get out. And then, of course, the thing I advocate is residual income streams, which I think we talked a little bit about in the last episode.
Yeah. I want to see, what I would really like to see is a solid community plan that is proven to work, because I think where I would really like to see all these city people going is to communities and permaculture communities. And so that's what I really want to see is a plan, a method of community that is proven to work. And so the only variable that can really fuck it up, or the major variable that could fuck it up, is those people that you're choosing to be in the community or leading the community or whatever. That's what I really want to see, because I think that is a city person that just moves to the middle of nowhere usually moves the fuck back to the city because it's just not working out for them where you are.
Any person that moves to the middle of nowhere and then it cut out.
Oh, any person that moves to the middle of nowhere is moving back to the city. Eventually, most people.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think community is the cure to that. Having strong communities.
I think so. I mean, out here in the country, you see a lot of people where it's like they'll have a couple of horses, or they might have a garden, but they don't. It's rare to see somebody who's got a garden to feed everybody and a lot of different animals. And then a lot of times it's like, I was out in the country and I had a big garden and I had a lot of animals, but it wasn't enough. I mean, I'm trying to do a bunch of other things. I mean, to try to add in the whole concept of having a milk cow and then like adding milking in the middle of everything. And it's like, well, I want to have the raw milk, but I'm already overwhelmed and I don't want to take on any more responsibilities. And so how do I get this to all pan out? I mean, it's that kind of thing where suddenly you start to think like, okay, it needs to be a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot harder to get everybody in a neighborhood that has nothing to do with permaculture into it so that you're sharing those resources. You can do it, but it's hard. It's a lot, or I wouldn't say it's easier, but I would like it more if it was a planned community where people are thinking, everybody in that community is thinking that way. Like, what are you going to provide? Because I'm going to provide something else so that we can share. We can trade with each other and have these things without having me doing all the shit. Because that's just going to make me fucking die or go away. Come on.
2 or 3 guys that are working their asses off, and then you got a bunch of other people that are like not so much. And so then you're saying trade, and it's like, yeah, trade. That's and it's like, I like the idea of having a few people where it's like it's all based on trade and stuff, and they don't do a lot. And that's cool. That's totally awesome. And it's like somehow you've grown food, and so you've got your own food. That's cool. You don't need to trade. You don't need to be a part of the rest of the system. You know, your role here is very tiny, and that's fine. And then there's some other people where it's like, man, they get a lot done. They're loaded to the gills with stuff to trade. Mm-hmm. And so then there's that. And of course, the best way to trade anything is like with monies. You know, but you could barter if you want. But I kind of think that the human element, those buckets of crazy, that's the thing. That's the biggest thing is we solve. I mean, when we talk about intentional community, that you could have a podcast dedicated to nothing but intentional community, and I think that you'd go 10 years of daily podcasts, and you're still just scratching the surface.
Yeah, and I think that'd be awesome, and it's needed. There's a niche to be filled. What came to mind just now was a great person to be in a community is the guy with the mill. The guy with the mill is going to get a lot of trading done.
Like the sawmill, or you mean? Okay, all right, yeah. I've got an electric sawmill, and it's solar. It's got a big solar setup.
Wow.
Well, when you get down here, I'll show it to you. I'll point at it. Look, there it is. See it? Right there. Like that.
Cool. I'm excited for it. Gotta have a pretty big battery bank, huh?
Well, yeah, it's got a 3,000 watt, solar array. Mm-hmm. And then of course, on a sunny day, on a long sunny day, you're going to get a lot more wood cut.
Well, is it going into a battery bank? And then
yeah, there is a battery bank. Yeah. All right, man, we've been at this for 2 hours.
Yeah. Shit, I still got stuff to say.
Well, fortunately, there will be another Tuesday next week.
There will be. All right. Number 10, Sepp Holzer, the man, the myth, the legend.
And we look at number 10, and some days I kind of think that maybe Willie Smits should be at number 10. But Willie Smits the tropical guy, and I'm a cold climate guy. So I think I'm going to leave Sepp there for now. But Willie Smits, man, that guy's doing some epic shit.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. It's been a blast. We'll see you at the PDC. Hope you're signing up. Can't wait to see you guys, everybody there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you again, Paul. All right, guys. Bye. Thank you.